The salvage rights to the Eternal Mourner were purchased for 640 Imperial thrones at a Navy auction on Cyprus Station. I remember this because I processed the transaction myself, verifying the vessel's last known coordinates against our operational range. The ship had been missing for 37 years. Standard protocol designated it as lost to the warp with all hands. No survivors expected. No recovery operations authorized. The Navy had written it off completely, which made the salvage cheap enough for our small operation to afford. I was 23 years old when I joined the salvage crew of the Redemption's Price. My name was Matthias Crane then, a name I used freely, a name that felt like mine. I had grown up in the lower factorums of Malfi, assembling power cells for Laskin batteries 12 hours per shift, 6 days per week. My father worked the same line, his father before him. 3 generations of Crane's manufacturing components we would never use, for weapons we would never carry, in wars we would never see. The day I left, my father gave me his ration chit, a small plasteel card, worn smooth at the edges from 40 years of handling. He pressed it into my palm and told me nothing, just looked at me with eyes that had stopped expecting anything decades ago. The card was warm from his pocket. I could feel the heat of it against my skin. I sold it the next day for transit fare off-world. I needed to leave more than he needed to eat. I told myself this repeatedly during the 6-week voyage to Cyprus Station. The warmth of that card remained in my palm for hours after I handed it over. Then it faded. Then I forgot what it felt like entirely. Captain Voros hired me because I could read technical schematics and didn't ask questions about salvage legality. The Redemption's Price operated in the gray margins of imperial law, recovering derelict vessels, stripping them for components, selling what we found to scrap dealers and tech collectors who didn't inquire too closely about provenance. We were licensed. Barely. Our documentation always passed inspection. Barely. The crew consisted of 9 individuals. Captain Voros commanded, a man whose augmetic jaw clicked when he spoke, a souvenir from a boarding action gone wrong 15 years prior. First Mate Rendell managed daily operations with quiet efficiency, his voice never rising above conversational level even during crisis. Tech Priest Hadron oversaw all mechanical systems, performing the required rituals and maintaining our Geller field generator with appropriate reverence. Then there were the salvage teams. 2 groups of 3 rotating shifts. I worked with Corbin and Yannick. Corbin was 47, missing his left hand from an industrial accident. He wore a crude mechanical replacement he'd built himself. Janek was 19, fresh from the Schola Progenium, trained for military service but rejected for poor eyesight. He wore corrective lenses that made his eyes appear too large, too focused. We lived in close quarters, sleeping berths stacked 3 high, common area that smelled perpetually of recycled air and nutrient paste, shower facilities that rationed water to 90 seconds per person per day. I learned the rhythm of other people's breathing, the sounds they made in sleep, the way Corbin's mechanical hand clicked softly when he dreamed, the way Janek muttered prayers to the Emperor during his ablutions faithfully every morning. For 6 months we worked standard salvage operations, small vessels mostly, ore haulers, transport shuttles, ships that had suffered mechanical failures or been abandoned after economic collapse of their operating companies. We pulled components, catalogued materials, sold everything. The work was tedious, but safe. No complications. No mysteries. Then Captain Voros purchased the salvage rights to the Eternal Mourner. He gathered us in the common area to explain the operation. The Eternal Mourner was a Gothic-class cruiser, pre-imperial design over 4,000 years old. It had vanished during a routine patrol of the Coronis Passage 37 years ago. The last transmission logged its position, then silence. Search operations found nothing. The Navy declared it lost with all 940 crew. 3 weeks ago, a merchant vessel had detected the Eternal Mourner's emergency beacon broadcasting from real space coordinates 40 light-years off its last known position. The ship had somehow returned from whatever had taken it. The Navy investigated, confirmed identification, then immediately abandoned further operations and listed the vessel for salvage auction. "Why would the Navy abandon a Gothic-class cruiser?" Janek asked. "Those are valuable ships. Why not recover it themselves?" Captain Voros's augmetic jaw clicked twice. The official report cites contamination concerns. No specifics, no details, just contamination. They sent a boarding team initially. The team returned and recommended immediate abandonment. "What did they find?" I asked. "The report is classified. What matters is that the ship is structurally intact, the salvage rights are legal, and we have legitimate claim to everything aboard. 4,000 years of Imperial technology. Pre-heresy components possibly. This is worth 10 years of standard operations." Tech Priest Hadron raised one mechadendrite in what I had learned to recognize as concern. If the Navy's boarding team recommended abandonment, there is significant risk. Contamination implies biological, chemical, or spiritual hazard. The boarding team performed preliminary scans only. No extended exploration. We will take appropriate precautions. Void suits, biological protocols. We go in careful, we document everything. We exit with anything valuable. Captain Voros looked at each of us in turn. "This is voluntary. Anyone unwilling to participate can remain aboard the Redemption's Price during the operation. Your share will be redistributed to participating crew." No one declined. We were salvage crew. Risk was baseline. The potential profit justified the danger. We spent 4 days in warp transit to the Eternal Mourner's coordinates. I performed my duties: maintenance checks, equipment verification, standard operations. Janek grew increasingly quiet as we approached, spending more time in prayer. Corbin maintained his equipment obsessively, taking apart his mechanical hand and rebuilding it twice, though nothing was wrong with it. When we translated back to real space, the Eternal Mourner was waiting. It hung against the void, like a monument to something forgotten. 3 kilometers long, Gothic architecture expressing itself in cathedral buttresses and gargoyle-studded armor plating. The ship appeared intact, no visible hull breaches, no impact damage, no signs of the violence that typically marked vessels lost to the warp. But it was dark, completely dark, no running lights. No power signatures. The emergency beacon was the only active system, broadcasting its distress on ancient frequencies that most modern vessels no longer monitored. We approached slowly. Captain Voros piloted the Redemption's Price with extreme caution, scanning continuously, watching for any anomaly. The Eternal Mourner remained inert, dead. "Waiting? Atmospheric readings?" Captain Voros asked. Tech Priest Hadron consulted his instruments. Internal atmosphere present but non-optimal. Oxygen levels at 17%. Temperature averaging 4 degrees Celsius. No biological signatures detected. No energy readings except the emergency beacon. Life signs? None. The vessel appears completely uninhabited. 940 crew had served aboard the Eternal Mourner when it vanished. None remain now, apparently. 37 years and not one survivor. We docked at the primary boarding airlock on the port side. Standard procedure for salvage operations. Tech Priest Hadron performed the docking rituals with appropriate solemnity, anointing the airlock seals with sacred oils and chanting the litany of successful connection. The docking clamps engaged with hollow thunks that reverberated through both ships. Captain Voros assigned teams. Rendell would remain aboard the Redemption's Price to monitor communications and maintain our withdrawal option. Tech Priest Hadron would accompany the primary team to assess mechanical systems. Corbin, Janek, and I formed the secondary team, tasked with locating and securing valuable components. We suited up in void-rated gear, full environmental seals, rebreather systems, magnetic boots for null gravity operations. Each suit included a Vox bead for communication and a handheld Auspex for scanning. We armed ourselves. Standard stub guns, nothing elaborate. Salvage crews rarely needed weapons, but protocol required them when boarding derelict vessels. The airlock cycled. Pressure equalized. The inner door opened onto darkness so complete our suit lights seemed to die within meters of projection. Captain Voros entered first. His light swept across a corridor that should have been familiar, standard Imperial Navy construction, utilitarian and efficient. But something was wrong with the surfaces. The walls appeared slick, covered in a substance that reflected our lights with oily iridescence. Hadron, analysis, Captain Voros commanded. Tech Priest Hadron approached the wall, extending a mechadendrite to collect a sample. The substance stretched slightly as he withdrew, forming thin strands before breaking. He processed the sample through integrated analytical systems. Composition is unusual. Organic base, partially crystalline structure. I detect trace amounts of proteins, minerals, and compounds I cannot immediately identify. It appears to be a biofilm of some kind, though the crystalline elements suggest non-standard biology. Dangerous? Captain Voros asked. Unknown. I recommend we maintain environmental seals and avoid direct contact. The substance covered everything. Walls, ceiling, deck plating. It pulsed, very slightly, a rhythmic expansion and contraction so subtle I might have imagined it. The cycle repeated every 11 seconds. I counted. 11 seconds expansion, 11 seconds contraction, regular as breathing. We advanced down the corridor, maintaining formation. Primary team ahead, secondary team following at 20-meter distance. Our suit lights carved moving circles through the darkness. The substance reflected our lights strangely, creating the impression of depth within the walls themselves, as though we were walking through something hollow rather than solid. The first body appeared 30 meters from the airlock. It had been a naval rating once. I could identify the uniform fragments still adhering to the skeletal remains. The bones were scattered across several meters of corridor, disconnected and arranged in no pattern that suggested natural decomposition. The skull rested against one wall, facing away from us. Something about the angle seemed wrong, deliberate. Log it, Captain Voros said. Mark the location. Continue. We found 17 more bodies in the first corridor section. All scattered, all skeletal. The substance covered them partially, growing over and through the bones in places. Several skulls shared the same characteristic, positioned facing walls rather than lying naturally. They turned away from something, Janek said quietly over the Vox. Before they died, they turned away. Maintain Vox discipline, Captain Voros replied. Speculation does not assist operations. We reached a junction. The corridor branched in 3 directions. Captain Voros consulted the ship's schematic on his auspex. Primary team will proceed to engineering. Secondary team, head to the bridge. We need to determine if any ship systems can be reactivated. Vox check every 10 minutes. Maintain communication discipline. Any anomaly, you report immediately and withdraw. Understood? We acknowledged. The teams separated. Corbin led our team toward the bridge. His mechanical hand clicked softly in the silence. Janek followed close behind him, his breathing audible over the Vox, short, shallow breaths that suggested barely controlled panic. I took rear position, monitoring our retreat path. The corridor ascended gradually through 3 deck levels. The substance grew thicker as we climbed, accumulating in corners and ceiling joints until it formed hanging strands like frozen syrup. Our magnetic boots pulled free of the deck, with soft tearing sounds where the substance had bonded to the soles. "This is wrong," Janek said. His voice had dropped to a whisper. "This ship feels wrong. We should leave. Maintain discipline," Corbin said. But his voice lacked conviction. He felt it too, the wrongness that pressed against us like physical weight. I tried to identify what specifically triggered this sensation. The darkness was expected. Derelict vessels rarely maintained power. The bodies were unfortunate but not unusual. The substance was strange but not immediately threatening. Yet, something fundamental felt corrupt about the space we moved through. Something that my conscious mind could not articulate, but my instincts recognized as danger. We reached the bridge level after 20 minutes of climbing. The bridge doors stood open. Unusual but not unprecedented. Emergency protocols would have opened all pressure doors during catastrophic power failure. The bridge was larger than the corridors, a command space designed to coordinate operations for 940 crew. Our lights could not illuminate the entire chamber. They revealed sections, command throne empty, navigation consoles dark, tactical displays lifeless, and everywhere the substance. It had accumulated on the bridge in thick sheets, hanging from the ceiling in curtains that swayed slightly in air currents our suits should not have been able to detect in the sealed environment. Corbin approached the primary command console. I'll attempt to access ship's logs. Janek, check environmental systems. Crane, maintain perimeter watch. I positioned myself near the entrance, watching both the corridor we descended and the bridge interior. My auspex showed nothing, no movement, no energy signatures, no life signs. Yet the feeling of being observed grew stronger. Janek moved to the environmental console. His hands trembled as he operated the controls. System has residual power, not enough to restart, but enough to access memory. I'm pulling atmospheric logs from the last active period. What do they show? Corbin asked. The ship lost main power 37 years ago. Emergency systems maintained minimal atmosphere for approximately 72 hours. Then everything died. The crew, he stopped. Read silently. The crew didn't die from atmospheric failure. According to the logs, they were already dead when power failed. The log doesn't specify. It just notes cessation of life signs across all decks within a 6-hour period. Then power failure. Then nothing. Corbin accessed the command throne's systems. Ship's log is accessible. Downloading now. This will take several minutes. The Vox crackled. Captain Voros's voice emerged distorted, broken by static. Secondary team, respond. Secondary team here. Corbin replied, reading you poorly. Significant interference. Primary team has reached, experiencing. Withdraw immediately. The transmission cut off completely. We waited. Corbin attempted to re-establish contact. Nothing. The Vox transmitted silence. Do we withdraw? Janek asked. The download isn't complete, Corbin said. We need this data another 3 minutes. Voros said withdraw immediately. You heard how broken that transmission was. We don't know what he actually said. Could have been prepare to withdraw or maintain position pending withdrawal. We can't make decisions based on corrupted communications. This was wrong reasoning, and we all knew it. But the salvage value of a Gothic-class cruiser's complete logs was substantial. 3 minutes felt survivable. I watched the corridor while we waited. The substance continued its rhythmic pulsing. 11 seconds expand, 11 seconds contract. I found myself breathing in sync with it, without consciously choosing to do so. Something moved in the darkness beyond my light's reach. I focused my light toward the movement. Saw nothing, but the sensation of being watched intensified. Download complete, Corbin announced. We can. A human voice, male raw with absolute terror. It echoed through the ship's corridors, amplified and distorted by the acoustic properties of the empty vessel, until it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The scream cut off abruptly. Silence returned, heavier than before. That was Vorin, Janek said. Vorin was part of the primary team. That was definitely Vorin. We need to. It lasted longer, rising in pitch and volume until it became something beyond human capacity for sound. Then it stopped. My Vox activated. Captain Voros's voice emerged clear now. No static. All teams withdraw immediately. Return to the redemption's price. Do not investigate. Do not delay. Withdraw now. We ran. Corbin led, his mechanical hand clutching the data device containing the ship's logs. Janek followed. I took rear guard, running backward occasionally to monitor pursuit. Something was pursuing us. I could not see it clearly. My light caught glimpses only, movement in the peripheral darkness, shapes that did not conform to human proportions. The sound of something heavy dragging across deck plating. We descended through the deck levels, retracing our path. The substance on the walls pulsed faster now. The rhythm had accelerated to 7 seconds expand, 7 seconds contract. Our breathing synchronized involuntarily. Janek fell. His magnetic boot caught an accumulated substance and he went down hard. Corbin stopped immediately, reaching to help him up. I turned to cover them and saw it clearly for the first time. It wore Vorin's face, not approximately, not resembling. It wore his actual face, stretched over something that possessed Vorin's approximate height and build, but moved wrong, joints bending in directions human joints should not accommodate. The face was perfect. I could see Vorin's scar above his left eye, the slight asymmetry of his nose from an old break. But the eyes were empty, hollow spaces that reflected my light back at me. The thing opened its mouth. Vorin's voice emerged. "Why are you running? We need to finish the operation." Captain's orders. They wore faces I did not immediately recognize. Crew from the Eternal Mourner, perhaps. Dead crew. Dead faces walking on things that were not bodies. I fired my stub gun. The projectile struck center mass and passed through completely, leaving a hole that closed immediately as the substance flowed to fill the gap. "Move!" I shouted at Corbin and Yannick. We ran again. The things followed. They did not pursue quickly. They moved with walking pace, patient and inevitable. But they did not stop. They did not tire. They simply followed. We reached the airlock level, 20 meters to safety. The docking collar was still secure, the redemption's price waiting beyond. Captain Voros stood at the airlock. Behind him, Tech Priest Hadron worked frantically at the controls. 3 other figures lay on the deck, primary team members unconscious or dead. "Get aboard," Captain Voros commanded. "Hadron, override the cycle sequence." "The machine's spirit resists," Hadron replied. His voice held something I had never heard from a Tech Priest before. Fear. "The protocols are corrupted. Something has infected the ship's systems." The things emerged from the corridor behind us. 6 now. They walked steadily forward. Vorin's face still smiled at me with perfect familiarity. "We don't have time for rituals." Captain Voros grabbed Hadron physically, pulling him away from the controls. "Open it manually." Tech Priest Hadron produced a pry bar from his equipment harness. Together with Captain Voros, they forced the airlock's inner door. The mechanism shrieked as it moved against design specifications. Metal bent, seals tore. The door opened onto the docking collar. We dragged the unconscious primary team members through. Corbin went first, his mechanical hand gripping someone's arm with crushing force. Janek helped me with another body. Captain Voros and Tech Priest Hadron brought the third. The things reached the airlock as we cleared the threshold. Captain Voros slammed the emergency seal. The door closed. Pressure locks engaged. We were through. We were safe. Except the thing wearing Vorin's face pressed against the airlock window, and its mouth moved, speaking words I could not hear through the sealed barrier. But I could read its lips. "We're already aboard." Captain Voros ordered immediate undocking. Rendell executed the separation sequence from the Redemption's Price's bridge. The docking clamps released with percussion that shuddered through our hull. Maneuvering thrusters fired, pushing us away from the Eternal Mourner at maximum safe velocity. I watched through the observation port as the Gothic-class cruiser receded into darkness. The emergency beacon continued its broadcast, indifferent to our departure. The ship hung in the void exactly as we had found it, dark, inert, waiting for the next salvage crew foolish enough to respond to its call. Tech Priest Hadron attended to the unconscious primary team members in the medical bay. They had sustained no physical injuries that scans could detect, no wounds, no toxins, no biological contamination. They simply would not wake. Their vital signs registered within normal parameters. Heartbeat steady, respiration regular, brain activity present. But consciousness did not return. Captain Voros gathered those of us still functional in the common area. 6 crew remained operational. Voros, Rendell, Hadron, Corbin, Yannick, and myself. 3 lay unconscious. The crew had been reduced by a third in less than 2 hours. "Report," Captain Voros said. His augmatic jaw clicked rapidly, a tell I had learned indicated stress. Corbin placed the data device on the common area table. We successfully downloaded the Eternal Mourner's ship logs, complete records from launch through final transmission. And what you encountered? Hostile entities, non-human, wearing human faces. They pursued us but moved slowly. Stub gunfire proved ineffective. Projectiles passed through without causing damage. Similar to what primary team experienced, Captain Voros said. We reached engineering. The compartment was filled with that substance. It had consumed all mechanical systems, growing through and around machinery. Hadron attempted analysis. Then Vorin saw something. He refused to specify what. Simply stated he needed to stay, that his duty required it. When we attempted to extract him, he attacked us. We were forced to subdue him. He remained conscious initially, speaking continuously, saying he could hear them, saying they knew us. Then the others collapsed. We barely escaped. "Did you recover Vorin?" I asked. "No. We left him. He was compromised. Bringing him aboard would have endangered the ship. I processed this. Vorin had been part of our crew for 4 years. Captain Voros had abandoned him without extended extraction attempt. This was logical. Protect the majority, sacrifice the compromised individual. Standard crisis protocol. Yet something in Voros's expression suggested the decision had not been purely logical. "What spoke through him before you left?" I asked. Captain Voros's jaw clicked 3 times. It knew things. Personal things. It addressed each of us by name, new details about our lives that Vorin should not have known, Hadron's birthplace, Rendell's family, my daughter's name. I have no daughter, never have. But it knew the name I would have given a daughter if I'd had one, a name I've never spoken aloud. Outside, through the observation ports, real space stretched infinite and empty. We were alone, safe, separated from the Eternal Mourner by increasing distance. "We're already aboard," Janek said quietly. That's what the thing wearing Vorin's face said to us, through the airlock window. We're already aboard. Full internal sensor sweep. Life signs, thermal readings, anything anomalous. Rendell moved to the bridge. We waited. The recycled air circulation system hummed its familiar background drone. Normal. Everything felt normal. Rendell returned within minutes. Scans show only 6 active life signs, all accounted for. The 6 of us currently conscious. The 3 unconscious crew register on biological monitors but are not ambulatory. No other entities detected, no thermal anomalies, no unauthorized presences. The ship is clean. Then it was attempting psychological warfare, Captain Voros said, trying to prevent our departure by implying contamination. We successfully escaped. We have the salvage data. We will proceed to the nearest station, sell the logs, and submit reports regarding the Eternal Mourner's condition. The Navy can decide how to handle it. This was reasonable. This was logical. We had survived. We had secured valuable data. We were safe. I wanted to believe this. Tech Priest Hadron entered the common area. His mechadendrites hung loose, a posture I had learned indicated exhaustion in his heavily augmented frame. The unconscious crew show no signs of improvement. I have placed them in medical stasis to preserve their functions. Perhaps station medical facilities will possess superior diagnostic capabilities. "How long until we reach Cyprus Station?" Captain Voros asked Rendell. 6 days if we proceed directly. 8 if we make the scheduled supply stop at Valhon Station. We'll resupply at Cypra. I want off this route as quickly as possible. We dispersed to our duties. Standard ship operations resumed. Watches were assigned. Meals were consumed. Sleep periods were observed. Everything returned to routine. Except Janek spent his entire off-shift in prayer. I could hear him in his bunk whispering litanies to the Emperor without pause. Except Corbin disassembled and reassembled his mechanical hand 17 times in one watch period, though it functioned perfectly. Except I found myself checking the corridors constantly, expecting to see faces that should not be present. On the second day after our escape, I began accessing the ship's log data Corbin had recovered. Captain Voros had not restricted access. The information would be sold regardless, and crew familiarity with the contents might prove valuable during negotiation. The Eternal Mourner had been 4,212 years old when it vanished. It had served in 17 major campaigns. It had transported 340,000 personnel across its operational lifetime. It had fired its weapons in anger 2,104 times. Standard service record for a ship of its classification. The final entries were more relevant. 37 years ago, the Eternal Mourner had been conducting routine patrol operations in the Corona's Passage. Standard deployment, no enemy contact expected. The logs documented normal operations for the first 8 days of patrol. Watch rotations, maintenance rituals, navigational adjustments, everything proceeding according to protocol. On the 9th day, the ship's navigator reported difficulty maintaining the Astronomicon signal. Not loss of signal, difficulty. The light of the Emperor's beacon appeared distorted, fractured as though being observed through flawed glass. The navigator requested additional time to compensate. Request granted. On the 10th day, the navigator reported complete loss of Astronomicon contact. Emergency procedures initiated. Gellerfield reinforced. Attempt made to establish fixed position and await signal restoration. On the 11th day, the ship's astropathic choir began screaming. The log entries became fragmented after this point. Timestamps corrupted. Sequential order unclear, but certain facts emerged from the chaos. The astropaths had detected something in the warp, something aware, something vast. They attempted to describe it to the captain, descriptions that made no sense even in corrupted text format. Mouths speaking backwards, eyes that consume memory, the thing that knows what we forgot. The captain ordered emergency warp translation back to real space. The navigators refused, stated that real space and warp space had merged incorrectly and translation would result in catastrophic dimensional intersection. The captain relieved the navigators of duty and ordered tech priests to perform manual translation. Translation failed. The Geller field generators overloaded. The field collapsed. Then the entries stopped making any sense at all. Crew members began reporting encounters with individuals they recognized. Family members, dead companions, people from their past who could not possibly be aboard. The entities knew intimate details. They spoke with familiar voices. They asked why the crew had forgotten them. The captain ordered all personnel to remain in assigned quarters, forbidden to respond to any voice except verified Vox communication. Unauthorized movement would be met with lethal force. On the 14th day, crew members began opening their quarters from the inside and walking into the corridors. When questioned via Vox, they responded that they had been called, that they were needed elsewhere, that they had to fulfill obligations. They walked to various locations throughout the ship: engineering, storage holds, chapel, medical bay. They lay down, they died. No violence, no struggle, they simply ceased. By the 17th day, 760 crew were dead. The captain ordered the surviving crew to the bridge. 180 personnel remained. They sealed themselves in the command center. Emergency protocols. No one enters or exits. The entities began speaking through the dead. Bodies in corridors sat up and spoke with multiple voices simultaneously. They addressed the survivors by name. They said they were coming. They said the ship belonged to them now. They said they would wait. On the 20th day, the captain recorded his final entry. 180 survivors remained sealed in the bridge. They had sufficient supplies for perhaps 6 weeks. The entities outside spoke constantly, day and night, calling to specific crew members by name, speaking in voices of their mothers, their brothers, their lost companions. The captain stated his intention to maintain position and await rescue. He expressed confidence that the Emperor would protect the faithful. He ended the log entry with prayer. Then nothing. No further entries, no indication of what occurred during the following 37 years before we arrived. I reviewed these logs alone in my bunk during third watch. The redemption's price hummed around me with familiar sounds, normal sounds. Safe sounds. Then I heard my father's voice. It came from the corridor outside my bunk. Clear, unmistakable. The voice I had not heard in 6 months. Speaking my name. Matthias, I need to talk to you. I remained completely still. This was not real. This was psychological contamination from reviewing the logs. Suggestion creating false sensory perception. Matthias, please. I don't have much time. They're coming and I need to tell you something important. About the card. About why I gave it to you. I activated my Vox bead. Spoke quietly. Corbin, are you awake? Response came immediately. Yes. Can't sleep. You? Probably. This whole situation has everyone on edge. Try to rest. I deactivated the Vox. Lay in darkness. Listened. The voice did not repeat. The corridor remained silent. I had imagined it. Stress response. Perfectly normal. I almost believed this. On the 3rd day after our escape, Janek stopped sleeping entirely. He spent all rest periods in prayer, his voice growing hoarse but never stopping. When Captain Voros ordered him to rest, Janek claimed he could not sleep because he heard his instructors from the Schola Progenium calling him, saying he had failed his duties, saying he needed to return and face judgment. There's no one there, Captain Voros told him. The ship is clean. Scans confirm it. The scans are lying, Janek said. His eyes had acquired a haunted quality, red-rimmed and too wide behind his corrective lenses. Or we're lying to ourselves. We brought something back. It's just waiting. Captain Voros ordered Tech Priest Hadron to administer sedatives. Janek was confined to his bunk under medical supervision. His prayers continued even after sedation, slurred and quiet but unceasing. I continued reviewing the Eternal Mourner's logs, trying to identify some pattern, some explanation for what had occurred, some way to understand what we had encountered. The entities the crew had reported, they were not daemons in any traditional sense. The logs made no mention of warp corruption, of chaos manifestation, of any phenomenon consistent with documented warp predators. The entities simply knew things. They wore familiar faces. They called to crew members using intimate knowledge. They were memories given form. The warp is thought given substance, emotion made manifest. The boundary between mental process and physical reality dissolves within its currents. When the Eternal Mourner's Geller field failed, the ship had been exposed to raw warp energy. The crew's memories, their dead, their lost, their forgotten, had found purchase in that energy, had become real, had returned. But we had not lost our Geller field. We had boarded the ship in normal space. We had maintained our protective barriers. We should have been safe. Unless the ship itself had become something else, unless 37 years of warp exposure had fundamentally altered its nature, unless it had become a thing that existed simultaneously in real space and warp space. A dimensional intersection, exactly what the Eternal Mourner's navigators had feared. And we had walked inside it, had breathed its atmosphere, had touched its walls, had brought something back with us. On the 4th day, the 3 unconscious crew members woke simultaneously. Tech Priest Hadron detected the change during his routine medical monitoring. He alerted Captain Voros immediately. We gathered in the medical bay. The 3 crew members sat upright on their medical slabs. Their eyes were open but unfocused. They breathed normally. Vital signs appeared standard, but something was profoundly wrong with their expressions. Too neutral, too empty, as though they wore their own faces poorly. "Can you hear me?" Captain Voros asked. All three heads turned toward him in perfect synchronization. Three mouths opened. One voice emerged from all of them simultaneously. "We can hear you, Captain. We've always heard you. All the things you think but never say. All the guilt you carry. All the people you've left behind." Captain Voros took one step backward. His hand moved to the stub gun at his belt. "Who are you?" he asked. "We are memory. We are the things you've forgotten. We are the cost that continues accruing while you sleep and eat and pretend you're clean." "You're not real," Captain Voros said. "You're warp contamination. Psychological manipulation." The three bodies laughed with one voice. "We're as real as anything else in this galaxy. More real than most things, because we came from you. We are made of your truth." Tech Priest Hadron stepped forward. "The Omnissiah protects the faithful. Your corruption cannot persist in the presence of holy machinery. Does he protect you, Hadron? Does your machine god care that you let 14,000 die on Baxar because you could not finish the repairs in time? Does he forgive you for that, or does he just pretend you didn't fail?" Hadron stopped moving. His mechadendrites trembled. "That was not my fault. The damage was catastrophic. No one could have... You could have pushed your augments beyond safe limits. You chose preservation of self over preservation of others. They screamed for 3 hours while the reactor melted down. You heard them. You did nothing." "That is not true," Hadron said. But his voice carried no conviction. The three bodies turned their synchronized attention to Corbin. "Shall we tell them about your hand, Corbin? About how you really lost it?" Corbin's mechanical hand clenched involuntarily. "Shut up. It wasn't an accident, was it? You put it in the machinery deliberately, to avoid deployment, to escape military service. You destroyed your own body to escape duty. Then you lied, said it was industrial accident, collected injury compensation, went into salvage instead of war. Thousands died in the campaign you should have fought in. You were safe. Working salvage, profiting from their deaths. Shut up." Corbin drew his stub gun, pointed it at the three bodies. His mechanical hand trembled. "And you, Matthias," the voice said, addressing me now through three mouths. "Shall we discuss your father? The man you stole from? The card he gave you was his ration allowance for an entire month. He had been saving it, planning to give it to you when you were ready to leave. A gift. You took it 1 week early, without asking, without permission. He starved for that month, ate nothing, gave everything to the family so they wouldn't know. He died 3 weeks after you left. Malnutrition and exhaustion. Your mother found his body on the factory floor. He was 43. You killed him for transit fare." I could not respond, could not move. The words created a weight that pressed me to stillness. "That's not true," I finally said. "He was sick, already dying. The card wouldn't have saved him. He was weak from hunger when the sickness took him. Hunger you created. Keep telling yourself he was already dying. Keep burying it. We'll keep bringing it back. That's what we do. That's what we are." Captain Voros fired his stub gun. 3 times. Each shot struck center mass on one of the bodies. They jerked with impact. Blood emerged. Real blood. But they did not stop speaking. Did not stop smiling. "Violence won't silence us, Captain. We're not in the bodies. We're in your heads. We've been there since you boarded the Eternal Mourner. We came back with you. Breathed in with the air. Touched in with your hands. We're passengers now. Going wherever you go. Speaking whenever the silence gets too loud." Tech Priest Hadron produced a blessed flamer from his equipment harness. "Then I will burn these vessels and seal this compartment. The contamination will be contained." "Do it," the voice said. "We'll just find new mouths. There are always new mouths. And eventually you'll run out of crew to burn." Hadron ignited the flamer. Holy promethium sprayed across the three bodies. They burned, screamed briefly, died. We sealed the medical bay. Hadron performed purification rituals over the sealed door. We retreated to the common area. No one spoke for 7 minutes and 43 seconds. I measured the time precisely. Silence felt safer than conversation. Conversation would require us to address what we had just witnessed, what had just been said about each of us. Captain Voros finally broke the quiet. Warp corruption. Psychological warfare. It knew things because it had access to the Eternal Mourner's records, personnel files, background information. It constructed plausible lies based on data. "My hand is not in any file," Corbin said quietly. "The truth about my hand. I never told anyone. There is no record." Then it guessed, made assumptions based on... It knew my daughter's name, Captain Voros said. His voice had flattened completely. The name I never gave. The daughter I never had. It knew. We sat with this. The implications were clear. The thing inside the burned bodies had possessed knowledge it could not have accessed through any normal means. It had reached into our private thoughts, our buried memories, our personal guilt. It had not been lying. I thought about my father, about the ration card, about the warmth of it in my palm, and how I had sold it without hesitation. I had told myself he was already sick, already dying, that the card would not have made difference. I had needed to believe this to justify what I had done, but I had never confirmed it, never asked family, never investigated, just left, assumed, convinced myself. "How do we fight something that lives in our heads?" Janek asked. He had emerged from his bunk, sedation worn off, eyes more haunted than before. "We don't," Rendell said. He had been quiet throughout the confrontation. Now he spoke with certainty. "We can't. If it's inside our thoughts, we have no defense. It knows everything we know. Can use anything we've done. We're compromised at fundamental level." "Then what do we do?" I asked. "We run until we can't run anymore. We reach Cypra Station. We submit to Imperial authorities. We tell them what happened. We accept judgment." "Judgment for what?" Corbin said. "We were performing authorized salvage operations. We encountered anomaly. We're victims, not criminals." "We're victims who became carriers," Rendell replied. "That thing, those entities, they're using us. We're vehicles for spread. When we dock at Cypra Station, we'll bring them into populated space. They'll jump to new hosts, spread through station population, use everyone's buried memories against them, create mass hysteria, mass suicide possibly. We're plague carriers. We set course for deep space. We abandon ship in escape pods before we reach any populated system. The redemption's price self-destructs. The contamination dies with us." "And the 6 of us?" Corbin asked. "We escape in pods and then what? Drift until oxygen runs out. Better than spreading this to millions." This was logical. This was correct. We had become threats to Imperial citizens. Protocol demanded containment by any means. Self-destruction was appropriate response. I wanted to reject this conclusion, wanted to argue that there must be another solution, wanted to believe we could somehow survive. But I remembered my father's face, remembered the exhaustion in his eyes, remembered how he had given me everything and I had taken it without appreciation, had left without looking back. Perhaps judgment was appropriate. On the 5th day, I began hearing multiple voices, not just my father now, my mother, my brother who had died at age 7 from industrial accident, my supervisor from the factorum, voices from my past, speaking from corridors, from ventilation shafts, from the spaces between bulkheads. They did not accuse, they simply talked to me. Casual conversation, asking how I had been, saying they missed me, wondering why I never visited, never wrote, never remembered them except as distant abstractions. I stopped sleeping. Sleep created vulnerability. In dreams, the voices grew clearer, more insistent. Awake, I could maintain boundaries, could recognize the voices as intrusion rather than memory. Janek stopped leaving his bunk entirely. He lay facing the wall, hands over his ears, praying continuously. The prayers had deteriorated into repetitive phrase fragments. Emperor protect, Emperor protect, Emperor protect, over and over until the words lost meaning. Corbin disassembled his mechanical hand and could not remember how to rebuild it. He sat in the common area with the components spread before him, staring at pieces he had assembled and disassembled hundreds of times. I don't remember, he kept saying. I don't remember how it goes together. They took it. They took how to fix it. Tech Priest Hadron maintained functionality longest. His augmented nature provided some insulation. Much of his memory was stored in mechanical systems rather than organic neural tissue. But even he began showing degradation. His rituals became confused. He would begin one prayer and transition into another without noticing. His mechadendrites moved without apparent direction, reaching for things that were not there. Captain Voros made the decision on the 6th day. We're proceeding to deep space coordinates. We'll evacuate in escape pods at safe distance from any populated system. The redemption's price will self-destruct. This contamination ends with us. Rendell executed the course change. We diverted from Cypra station trajectory, set heading for empty void between systems. The voices intensified. They stopped being subtle, stopped pretending to be casual memory. They began demanding, accusing, screaming. My father's voice told me repeatedly that he had died for nothing. That I had killed him for transit fare to a salvage career that meant nothing. That I would die having accomplished nothing, having saved no one, having mattered to no one. I could not argue with any of this. It was all accurate. 12 hours from the evacuation point, Janek left his bunk. I heard him moving in the corridor, found him standing at the airlock. Janek, step away from there, I said. He looked at me. His face was calm. The haunted quality had vanished, replaced by certainty. They're right, you know, he said. Everything they've said. We're failures. We failed our duties. We failed the people who depended on us. We're just taking up resources, consuming oxygen. There's no redemption for us, no forgiveness. Just slow decline and eventual death that means nothing. That's the contamination talking. Your thoughts aren't your own. No, my thoughts are finally clear. I've been lying to myself, building barriers, pretending my failures were justified. They weren't. I was weak. I am weak. The only thing I can do now is stop consuming resources others could use. He opened the airlock inner door. I moved to stop him, but he was faster. He stepped inside, sealed the inner door. His eyes found mine through the window. Tell them I'm sorry, he said. Tell them Janek failed. Tell them it was his fault. He opened the outer door manually. Vacuum claimed him instantly. His body vented into space, tumbled away into darkness. Gone. I stood at the airlock window for uncounted time, processing what I had just witnessed, what I had failed to prevent. I could have stopped him, could have tackled him before he entered the airlock, could have sealed the corridor, could have called for help sooner. I had done nothing, watched him walk to his death, let him go. The voice in my head that sounded like my father said, "You killed him too. Just like you killed me. You kill everyone by doing nothing." I could not argue with this. 8 hours from evacuation point, Tech Priest Hadron sealed himself in the engine compartment, stated via Vox that he was performing final maintenance rituals, ensuring the self-destruct mechanism would function perfectly. We would not fail in even this final duty. 6 hours from evacuation point, Corbin took his stub gun to his quarters and did not emerge. 4 hours from evacuation point, Rendell reported that he had set the self-destruct to engage automatically at the designated coordinates. No crew input would be required. The ship would complete its function with or without us. 2 hours from evacuation point, Captain Voros gathered those of us still conscious in the common area. 3 crew remained: Voros, Rendell, and myself. "The escape pods are prepared," Voros said. His augmetic jaw had stopped clicking. He had removed it entirely, revealing the scarred flesh beneath. "We have sufficient supplies for approximately 1 week. Imperial protocol states rescue vessels should investigate escape pod signals within that time frame. We may survive. Do you believe that?" I asked. "No. But protocol states we must attempt survival. So we will attempt." Rendell looked at me, then at Voros. "I'm not taking a pod. That's suicide," Voros said. "We're dead regardless. The pods just prolong it. Make it slower, more painful. I'd rather go quick. Stay with the ship. End it clean. I'm ordering you to evacuate. You can't enforce that order. You have no authority over my final choices. None of us do. That's the only freedom we have left." Captain Voros stared at him, then nodded slowly. "Understood. You'll stay aboard. Crane and I will evacuate." We moved to the pod bay. 2 pods remained functional. Captain Voros entered the first. I stood at the entrance to the second. "Crane, embark now. We have 17 minutes to evacuation point. Small, dark, quiet. 1 week of slow suffocation while waiting for rescue that would not come. 1 week of voices telling me everything I had done wrong, everything I had failed, everyone I had killed through action or inaction. Or I could stay. Go quick, like Rendell said. End it clean." "I'm staying," I said. "Crane, that is suicide. It's all suicide. I'm just choosing timing." Then he nodded. "May the Emperor forgive us for what we've done and failed to do." "He won't," I said, "but at least it'll be over." A small bright point of light that faded quickly against the dark. I returned to the common area. Rendell sat at the table. We did not speak. There was nothing left to say. The redemption's price reached the designated coordinates. The self-destruct engaged automatically. Alarms sounded. Emergency lighting activated. The ship began counting down its final moments. 30 seconds remaining. Rendell looked at me. "Do you think they'll stop?" "The voices, when we're dead, I don't know. I hope they do. I hope death is just nothing. No consciousness, no memory, no guilt. Just nothing." 20 seconds remaining. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what I did, for what I didn't do, for all of it." "Me too." 10 seconds remaining. The voices were screaming now, all of them simultaneously. My father, my mother, my brother. Every person I had failed, every choice I had made wrong, every moment of weakness, every act of cowardice, all of it compressed into one terrible chorus of accusation and truth. 5 seconds remaining. I thought about the ration card, about its warmth in my palm, about how I had sold it without hesitation. 3 seconds remaining. I thought about Yannick walking to the airlock, about how I had watched him die, done nothing. 1 second remaining. The redemption's price detonated. Reactor core breached containment. Energy release was immediate and total. The ship converted from structured matter to expanding plasma in microseconds. I experienced nothing, or I experienced everything, or I experienced something between nothing and everything that has no name. I exist now in a state that should not be possible. Consciousness without body. Thought without brain. Memory without neural tissue to store it. The warp is thought given substance. When the redemption's price exploded, some fragment of my consciousness persisted in the energies released. Some echo. Some residual pattern that continued processing even after the physical substrate was destroyed. I am not alone. The others are here too. Rendell, Janik, Corbin, the 3 burned crew members, Vorin, all the crew of the Eternal Mourner, 940 voices speaking simultaneously in spaces that exist between real space and warp space. We are memory now. We are the things that persist after death. We are the cost that continues accruing. We drift here, wherever here is, Time functions differently. Minutes feel like years. Years feel like minutes. We speak to each other, but conversation has no sequence. All moments exist simultaneously. The entities that wore familiar faces, they are here too. But I understand them differently now. They were never external, never invasion from outside. They were always us, our own memories given form through warp exposure, our own guilt made manifest. We created them from our buried thoughts. We gave them voices. We gave them faces. We were haunted by ourselves. Sometimes I can still feel the ration card's warmth in my palm, even though I have no palm, even though the card was sold 37 years ago in a life I no longer possess. The sensation persists. Memory is stronger than death. Sometimes I hear my father's voice, but it is not accusing now, just tired, just sad, just speaking the truth I always knew but refused to acknowledge. I killed him. Not with weapons, not with violence, with casual selfishness, with taking what he offered without appreciation, with leaving without looking back. I carry this. We all carry what we did, what we failed to do, the people we hurt, the duties we abandoned, the moments we chose ourselves over others. This is what remains when everything else is stripped away. This is what consciousness becomes without the distractions of physical existence. Pure memory, pure guilt, pure recognition of cost. The eternal mourner still drifts out there, still broadcasting its emergency beacon. Eventually, another salvage crew will respond. They will board. They will encounter the substance on the walls. They will trigger the same process we triggered. They will bring pieces of the ship back with them, pieces of us. We will speak to them using faces they recognize, using knowledge we gained from them during their time aboard. We will tell them truths they have buried. We will make them face what they have done. Some will resist, some will flee, some will die fighting us, but eventually they will all become part of the echo, part of the memory, part of the cost that continues forever. This is what the warp does. This is what happens when consciousness meets pure chaos. All the barriers we build to protect ourselves from our own truth, they dissolve. Everything hidden becomes visible. Everything buried rises. Everything forgotten remembers itself. The Imperium produces this constantly. Millions die every day in service to the machine. Billions live with buried guilt, with hidden failures, with private horrors they cannot acknowledge. All that suppressed truth accumulates, waits, seeks outlet. We are one outlet, one place where the truth found voice. There will be others. The warp is infinite. The galaxy is vast. The amount of buried pain, buried guilt, buried truth exceeds measuring. All of it is waiting. All of it will eventually speak. I exist now as echo, as memory without body, as guilt without possibility of redemption. I speak through the substance that grows on the eternal mourner's walls. I speak through the voices that call to anyone who enters. I speak truth that cannot be denied because it comes from within rather than without. This is what I have become. This is what we all become eventually, when the distractions fall away and only the truth remains. I remember the ration card's warmth. I remember my father's exhausted eyes. I remember choosing myself over him. I remember every moment of selfishness, every act of cowardice, every failure of duty. I remember all of it with perfect clarity, forever. This is the cost of consciousness. This is what it means to be aware. This is what remains when everything else is consumed. The eternal mourner drifts, waits, broadcasts its signal. We drift, wait. Remember, eventually, someone will answer. We will tell them the truth. They will become echoes too. The cycle continues, the cost accumulates, the voices multiply. This is eternal. This is inescapable. This is what we built through all our choices, all our failures, all our buried truths. This is what the Imperium produces when you look beneath the surface, when you acknowledge what was sacrificed, what was abandoned, what was destroyed to keep the machine running. We are the memory of that cost. We speak it endlessly. We wait for new voices to join the chorus. There are always new voices. There will always be new voices. The screaming never stops.